All right, so let's begin. Thank you for accommodating the earlier time tonight. So let's start. We are up to Chesam Days 8b, and we left off Rav Bibi Bar Abaye, third line down from the top. 8b, 3 lines from the top. So let's remember again, the Gemara introduced us to the beautiful concept of Shnai Mikra ve'echad Targum, the power of finishing the parasha together with the tzibur, reading each pasuk twice, and one time with Targum, one time with commentary. The commentary could be Rashi, the commentary could be Onkelos. It's actually interesting, so you know, technically speaking, you could even fulfill Shnai Mikra ve'echad Targum with Art Scroll, reading the English Art Scroll, because you know Art Scroll is not a translation. Art Scroll English is not a translation. Art Scroll English is a commentary. So technically speaking, one could fulfill the Targum even just by reading Art Scroll. Interesting. All right, so then the Gemara says, Rabibi Barabai Savar Lashlominu leparshaisa de kulishasa b'mala yom de Kippuri. So Rabibi Barabai had a thought. He thought to go ahead and finish up the parashos of the Torah on Erev Yom Kippur. So instead of doing it weekly, he figured, you know what, let me just make a run at it on Erev Yom Kippur and do all of the parashos at one time. So Pasuk says, you shall afflict your soul on the 9th of Tishrei. The Gemara says, but you don't fast on the 9th. Yom Kippur is the 10th of Tishrei. We fast on the 10th. Whoever eats and drinks on the 9th of Tishrei, Erev Yom Kippur, if you go ahead and you fast, if you eat on Erev Yom Kippur, so you get the reward as if you fasted on the 9th and the 10th. Now, why is this being brought down over here? Because the Gemara is saying, Rav Bibi, Erev Yom Kippur is not really the time for Shnai Mikra ve'echad Targum. That's not really what it's time for. It's time for eating. It's time for eating, and therefore, again, you really shouldn't focus on your Shnai Mikra ve'echad Targum on Erev Yom Kippur. So Sarah Laktaminus, he said, no problem, I'll do it before Erev Yom Kippur. In other words, I'll do it on the 8th of Tishrei, 2 days before Yom Kippur. Amalehu Sabat Tanino, Ol Bevat Shelo Yakdim V'Shelo Ya'acher. Rabbi say, but we also learned that you shouldn't go ahead and do the parasha earlier or later. In other words, Rabbi say, the ideal is, let's finish. As Rabbi Shmuel Silber said to his sons, Ashlimu Parshasaychu Imat Tzibor, Shnai Mikra ve'echad Targum. So here, Shmuel Levi says, Shnai Mikra ve'echad Targum, will say, is not just finishing the parsha, but it's what? It's finishing the parsha together with the tzibor. So it's dafka doing it on the week of that parsha, not doing it later, not doing it earlier. There's some interesting discussions. So some bring down that one is technically permitted to finish up last week's parsha until Tuesday of the following week. What's the chat? You can make havdalah, right? You know, you can technically speak, you make havdalah until Tuesday, so you can finish the parsha Shavuot until Tuesday. But the ideal, just you should understand, the ideal is to finish up the weekly parsha before mincha on Shabbos. Because since Mincha on Shabbos, we begin to read next week's parasha, then already again it's shaykh to next week's parasha. So the goal of Shnai Mikra ve'echad Targum is to finish the parasha each week. Don't do it earlier, don't do it later. Furthermore, Rabbi Shmuel Levi said to his sons, "V'zaru bivridin, Rabbi Yehuda. Be careful with the vridin." So we'll say. So Rashi points out over here, the vridin are veins by the neck that have a lot of blood. So the idea over here, especially by shchita of a bird, the idea is cut the vridin so that the blood comes out. The Gemara says, Rabbi Yehuda Omer ad sheyishchot es havridin. Ultimately, again, shchita is only proper once let's talk about by an oath, by a bird, once you cut the vridin, once you cut these veins to allow the blood to drain out. Now let's say this is actually beautiful. Rabbi Yehuda says, V'zaru b'zakin sheshachach tamudo. Be very careful with the dignity and the kavod of an older person who has forgotten his learning. That's a very profound idea, right? You could have an elderly person who has forgotten his learning. So the Gemara says, be careful with the dignity of such a person. Why? So the Gemara says, Da'amrinon luchos v'shivre luchos munachin ba'aron. Because also you know that when we had the aron, right? So ultimately, the whole tablets and the broken tablets were both housed inside of the aron. So it's actually a very beautiful metaphor. So the zaken, right? The person who has his Torah knowledge, he's called the complete luchos. The person who doesn't have his Torah knowledge, he's lost his Torah knowledge, dementia, Alzheimer's, right? So I'll say, what is he called? He's called the broken luchos. Actually, very beautiful. He's called the broken luchos. And the Gemara tells us that both the whole luchos and the broken luchos were both placed inside of the aron. Really beautiful. Amaluhu Rabbi Lebnei. Rabbi said to his sons, Kisha'atem chotken. I'll say, just I'll point out to you something very important. You know, sometimes, especially when a person is dealing with elderly parents, and if one does have to deal with a parent with dementia or a parent with Alzheimer's, it's incredibly difficult, it's overwhelming, and the truth is sometimes it can lead one to take certain liberties with the dignity of said parents, right? Because the parent doesn't remember things, this Gemara always is very important, that sometimes in life people become shivrei luchos, they become broken tablets, they become broken formers, broken versions of themselves. But yet, even so, a person still maintains and retains their personalistic kedusha. Incredibly important. Rava said to his sons, when you're cutting meat, al tichtuchu al hagav. Do not go ahead and cut the meat on your hand. In other words, what he's referring to over here is like this. You have a piece of meat, right? You go ahead, you put it on your hand. Don't cut it on top of your hand. Now, what's the logic behind that? So the Gemara says, Ike da amri, mishum sakana. Some say because it's sakana. And I will say, what's the sakana? You're going to cut your hand. The Ike da amri, mishum kilkul suuda. Others will say because if you cut your hand, even if it's not dangerous, what's going to happen? It's going to bleed. And if the blood gets mixed in with the food or the blood gets on the table, it's disgusting. So either way, don't cut meat on your hands while holding it, put it down. Either because, again, sakana, you could lose a finger, lose a hand, or chas v'shalom, again, ruin the suuda. Incredible. The Gemara goes weiter for the Gemara. Va'al teishvu al mitas aramis. Do not sit on the bed of an Aramean woman. All right, what does that mean? So the Gemara says, we'll see what it means in this moment. And do not walk behind a shul at the time that the shul is davening, tzibur is davening. So what's going on over here? So let's analyze. We'll say first wide line, Chesed Days 8b. So the Gemara says, Al teishu amitas aramis. Don't sit on the bed of an Aramean woman. Ike da amri lo signu b'lo kriyah shema. Some say that means don't go to sleep without saying shema. So we'll say what that means is like, don't make your bed into the bed of an Aramean. Right? How does an Aramean go to sleep? He puts his hand on the pillow, he just goes to sleep. So don't be like that. Rather, again, there has to be something, there has to be kedusha in your life before you go to sleep. So say Kriyat Shema before you go to sleep. Good. Others say it refers to the idea of don't go ahead and marry a convert. So that's what it means. Don't sleep on the bed of an Aramean, don't marry a convert. I will say, why would Rava say don't marry a convert? I just point out, Rava was a Kohen. So remember, interestingly enough, who is Rava talking to over here? He's talking to his sons. So a Kohen is not permitted to marry a Giores. Or it could also be that what he's referring to is that some people who convert are genuine, some people who convert are not genuine, and a person just has to be mindful of who it is that they're going to marry. Some say this is not a metaphor. It's not a metaphor. It's actually literal. Do not sit on the bed of an Aramean woman. Why? What happened? The Gemara says, "Umishum ma'aseh de Rav Papa." This is wild. What happened with Rav Papa? The Rav Papa also legabe gevia. So Rav Papa once went to visit a particular noble woman. And what happened? An Aramean woman, hotzia lo mita. She brought out a bed for him. Now, remember again, they used to sit on beds. So she brought out a bed for him. Amar lo shave. He said here. She said, take a seat. Amar lo eini yoshev ache tagbi es hamita. I'm not going to sit down until you lift up like the cushion of the bed. So what happened? Higbi es hamita umatzah Hashem tinok meis. Incredible. Lift up the cushion, and what did they find? A child who was dead. So the Gemara says, what's going on? What's the backstory? So the Marshal says that they were trying to frame Rav Papa. It was like a blood libel. They were trying to frame Rav Papa that Rav Papa had killed a Gentile child. That was the story. So Rav Papa, again, apparently his antennas were up, so he sensed this. So he said, from there they said, Mikan Amru, Chachamim Asr Leishev Amitas Aramis. So from here Chazal said, you can't sit on the bed of an Aramean woman. Okay. And I will say, don't walk. Achori Beis means behind the shul. Right? Now, we'll say, what's the idea? The concern over here is that if the tzibur is davening and you're walking in the back of the shul, behind the shul, it looks like you're being porish min tzibur. You're separating yourself from the congregation. Here, the tzibur is davening, and you're not joining them. So the Gemara says, You can't do them. This person Rabbi Shmuel Levi. A person is not permitted to walk behind the shul and pass by a shul in the back of the shul at the time that the tzibur is davening, because it looks like you are separating yourself from the tzibur. That's only true if the shul only has one entrance. So if the shul has one entrance and it's not in the back and you're passing it by, it looks like at the end of the day you're dafka not joining them. But if there's another entrance, don't worry about it, because even if people see you passing by the back of the shul, they could assume that's what? You're going into the shul through a different entrance. Furthermore, that's only when there's not another shul in town. But if there is another shul in town, then you can walk by the shul, right? Of course, it's always the shul you walk by, right? There's the shul you won't daven in, the shul you walk by. So you can walk by and it doesn't look like an affront. Why? Because people will just assume that you're going to another shul. Okay? Furthermore, this only applies if you're not carrying a load, or you're not running or wearing tefillin. Now, what does it mean over here? See, if you're carrying a load, people know the reason you're not going into shul is because you're carrying the load. Or if you're running, people know you're on your way somewhere. Or if you're wearing tefillin, again, you've pledged your allegiance to God, so it doesn't look like you are shirking your religious responsibilities. But if you have any one of these things, then there's no worry. In other words, we'll say the whole idea over here is you can't walk by shul in a way that makes it look like you have no interest in joining into the tzibur. But if it's clear that you've pledged your allegiance to Yiddishkeit, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but for whatever the reason you just can't come into shul now, it's not a problem. Incredible. So we'll say, let's go weiter. Tanya, I'm Rabbi Akiva. Shmuel, excellent. Life is all about finding happiness in the little things. Right? So just a good flavored seltzer late night. Baruch Hashem. Incredible. All right. So let's say, let's go right to Tanya. I'm Rabbi Akiva. Somebody listens to this shiur, asks me if we're doing product placement. As part of the shiur, I say, it's not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea. We could bring in some advertising revenue. Today's shiur is brought to you by Trader Joe's sparkling grapefruit water. Right? So let's go right. Says the Gemara. Tanya, I'm Rabbi Akiva. So it's incredible. So Rabbi Akiva said there are three things that I like the midian for, right? Midian is madai, right? So the median individuals, right? Nation. There's three things I like about them. Number one, when they cut meat, they only cut meat on a table, right? We'll say this references back to what we saw before. They don't cut meat, while holding it in their hand. When they kiss each other, right, they don't kiss each other on the cheek or on the lips, they kiss on the hand. Rashi points out, we'll say, what's the pshat with that? Whenever you kiss someone, there's some saliva. So like this, they're like a little bit more makpid. They don't want to get saliva on somebody's cheek. So instead, they just kiss the hand. All right. When they literally, yotze means when they give advice. It means when they're seeking counsel from one another in more sensitive matters, they only have those type of conversations out in the field. Away from people. What's the pasuk? Vayishtach Yaakov vayikil Rachel Leah hasada el tzono. Because it was Yaakov Avinu, when he wanted to talk to Rachel and Leah about what was happening with Lavan, what did he do? He called them into the field. We'll say, why? Because Lamaisa, again, anytime you try to have a conversation within your house, what happens? There's multiple pairs of ears that are listening to any given conversation. So the Midian, they knew that if you want to go out and have a conversation, take it out into the field. Incredible. Tanya, Rabbi Gamliel. So Gamliel said there are three reasons why I like the Persians. Number one, so the Gemara says, apparently they're modest when they eat. They are modest in the bathroom. And they're modest when it comes to matters of intimacy as well. Okay, interesting. Tani Rabbi Yosef, Elu Parsim Hamukdashin Umzumanim Legehenim. So we'll say a little bit of a different approach over here, right? So ultimately, again, Rabbi Yosef says, this pasuk I commanded those who are set aside. Mekudushai means those who are set aside. What are they set aside for? Rabbi Yosef says, these are the Persians. Ultimately, again, who are set aside for Gehenim. So it's interesting over here. So whereas you have Rabbi Gamliel extolling the Persians for these qualities of tznius, ultimately, again, Rabbi Yosef says the Persians are terrible. The Persians are terrible, right? Again, I will say, we know the persecution that we suffered under the Persians. So ultimately, again, they are Muzuman for Gehenim. Incredible. All right, so I will say, so now, back to Berachos a little bit, back to some of the halachas. Remember again, the Gemara now quotes from the Mishnah, Rabbi Gamliel Omer. Rabbi Gamliel said, I will say, so back in the Mishnah, Rabbi Gamliel said that Ad Shiala Amud Hashachar, that you could say the nighttime Shema up until dawn. Up until dawn. So we'll say, so again, just to orient ourselves a little bit. So remember, let's assume for our purposes right now that dawn is 72 minutes before sunrise. 72 minutes before sunrise. Okay, so now watch this. So I'm Rabbi Shmuel. Halach Rabbi Gamliel. Rabbi Husain Mishal. Halach like Rabbi Gamliel. I will say that is how we paskin. You could say the nighttime Shema. You could have a Ma'ariv. You could have a Ma'ariv, say Shema of Ma'ariv up until dawn. Up until dawn. So the Gemara says as follows. Halach Rabbi Gamliel. Tanya, Rabbi Shema Yochai says, listen to this. Pamim sha'adam kori kriya shema shtei pamim balayla. Achas kodim shi'ala when hashachar v'achas li achas shem when hashachar v'yotze bahen yidei chavaso achas shal yom v'achas shal layla. So we'll say this is absolutely fascinating. Rabbi Shmuel Yochai says as follows. Sometimes, listen to the wording here is very important. Sometimes a person could say Shema twice at night, one time before dawn and one time after dawn, and he has satisfied two responsibilities. Number one, the one before dawn is Kriyas Shema of Ma'ariv, and the one after dawn is Kriyas Shema of Shachris. Okay, the Gemara says that is an inherently contradictory statement. Why? Haguf Akasha, Amrit, Pamim Sha'adam Kari Kriyas Shema Shtei Pamim Balayla. Remember, how did Rabbi Shmuel Yochai begin his statement? He says sometimes a person could say Shema twice at night. At night. Now, what can you infer from that? We'll say first the widest line. Amma the achar sheya'ala amud hashachar laylahu. Right? That seems to infer that after dawn is still considered night. V'hadir tani. Then he also said yotze b'han yedei chavaso achasha v'achasha layla. But then you said the Shema that you say after dawn ultimately is the daytime Shema, which you can infer from that means what? Alma yemamahu. So we'll say it's Rabbi Shmuel Yochai is contradicting himself. First, he seems to indicate that the timing after dawn is considered to be night because it calls it Laila. But then he's saying you could be Yotzei Kriyas Shema Shal Shacharis, which obviously means it's day. So what's going on? Which the Gemara says no. Liolam Lailahu. In reality, even after dawn is considered to be night. So 1 second, if it's after night, then how can you fulfill the mitzvah of daytime Shema if it's still night? The Gemara says, "V'hadekar leyom deika inshi dekaime ba'hi shaita." It will say, since there are people that are already beginning to get up after dawn, so therefore what? It's called uvikumecha. It's called the Vikumecha, and since it's called the Vikumecha, therefore you can go ahead and say the morning Shema. Amravacha Barchanina, Amr Rabbi Shimon Levi, Halach Rabbi Shmuel Yochai, Halacha follows Rabbi Shmuel Yochai. Fine, so we'll say, so just let's finish off with this, an alternate version of this discussion. Iked Masni Lahadra Acha Barchanina Aha. Others will say explain in a different way. They say like this: Desanya Rabbi Shmuel Yochai Omer Mishum Rabbi Akiva. So Rabbi Shmuel Yochai said, "Pamim sha'adam kori kriyas Shema shtei pamim bayom." Sometimes a person could end up saying Shema twice by day, and yet one achas kodim neitzachama, the achas l'neitz acha neitzachama, one before sunrise, one after sunrise. The yotzei b'han yedei chovaso achas shal yom v'achas shal layla, and you could fulfill the one before sunrise is for Ma'ariv, the one after sunrise is for Shachris. The Gemara says inherently contradictory. Haguf Akasha, Amrit Pamim Sha'adam Kori Kriyas Shtei Pamim Bayom. You're telling me it's a case of someone having Shema twice by day. Amma Koden Neitzachami Imamahu. Therefore, before sunrise is daytime. But then you tell me you could also fulfill the nighttime obligation, which indicates to us that it's nighttime. To which the Gemara says, "Lo, top of test, 9a, lo, the olam yimamahu." It's really, again, I will say, it's really daytime. V'hai the karle laila. So ultimately, why do you call before dawn night if it's really considered halachic day? The ika inshi the ganu bahi shaita, because there are people who are still sleeping at that time. Fine. So I'll say, so by the way, halacha l'maisa, how do we paskin? We paskin that the nighttime Shema could be recited up until alos. So you could daven Ma'ariv up until dawn. Now again, after alos, the ideal time for Shema is really not until sunrise, right before sunrise, and then daven Shmona Esrei at sunrise. But b'di eved, if a person did say Kriyat Shema Shal Shachris, even after Alos, even after dawn, technically speaking, they would still be Yotzei. All right, Mosai, we'll stop over here for tonight. Shkoyach Gadol. Just, one more schedule change for this. Tomorrow night, shiur is going to be before the Chassidus shiur, so it's going to be at 7:30. Next week in Meretz Hashem, we'll be back on a more regular schedule. But 7:30, I'll put it out on the chat in Meretz Hashem. 7:40. 7:40 tomorrow evening in Meretz Hashem, and then again next week we're back to a regular schedule. Shkoyach.